Hey guys, Rift here and let's talk about The Witcher 3. Do you ever get that empty feeling when you finish an amazing book? Or a movie, or in this case a video game? I rarely finish a video game that would take 100 plus hours to finish, but for this game it was worth it. A few weeks back, I made a review for The Witcher 3 after finishing the game. I went ahead and rewatched that video and I felt like I didn't give this game the justice it deserves. This game is amazing, a real masterpiece. After going through every main mission, every side quest, well, except the collect them all side quests and treasure hunts, I fully understand why this game is so beloved. From beautiful locations to a masterful story, to quests that questions your morals and a fairly addicting gameplay loop. The Witcher 3's story and whole game is centered around the most monotone character in gaming, but Geralt is very interesting as a main character. Seeing his reaction towards the world around him and seeing how the world reacts to Geralt is one of the game's strong points. Geralt throughout the story may try to hide his emotions, but his subtle reaction towards the things around him makes him very interesting to follow, and the way he changes the minds of those around him and his charisma overall is underrated. We also can't forget his combat skills, a master of the blade that can take on any threat and prevail because of his wit and cunning. But under all that, there's a man who shows care and compassion for his friends and those close to him. The base game story is like chasing after a ghost, for the most part, but then Act 2 and 3 start, and it gets intense really quickly. I don't really want to spoil too much, but yeah, CDPR, as I always said, are really good when it comes to storytelling overall. We'll talk more about the story once we get to the DLCs later. The locations where the events of The Witcher 3 happens takes us to different parts of the Northern Kingdom, from the battle-torn Velen to the modern city of Novigrad to the beautiful Isles of Skellige to Kaer Morhen, plus Toussaint, where the DLC Blood and Wine takes place. Every location in this game tells us a story on its own. Your adventure begins in Velen. Well, technically White Orchard, but that's more like a tutorial map. While exploring Velen, you'll see towns burned to the ground, a literal tree that's named Hangman's Tree, battlefields ridden with war victims, refugees, and monsters everywhere. In contrast to Novigrad, a big bustling city ruled over by ruthless gangs and thugs, and merchants at every corner, but also a city that is obsessed with ridding its walls of mages and magical creatures. Districts that separates commoners from the rich and the powerful. While Velen is mostly quiet from its recent battles, Novigrad is always busy. Then you move to Skellige, breathtaking isles, lands filled with mystery, and a vast body of water separating its islands. Skellige is quiet for the most part, but overall, its mystical locations and its mysterious lands are filled with things to see and uncover. The DLC of Blood and Wine introduces us to the fairy tale-like land of Toussaint. This location, like every other location, is breathtaking. But unlike most locations in The Witcher 3, this place is sunny with bright colors everywhere, knights on horseback, art, and music that bring this sense of romance in the air. But behind it all is also a place of ancient power. Vampires roam its lands and terrorize its people, creatures, and so much more. Every new location feels like another game. Every time you go to a new location, you uncover new stories and new adventures. Gameplay-wise, this game is addicting. Looking for better gear, battling different beasts, employing different strategies, leveling up, it all can be addicting. But there was a part in the beginning where I felt like it got stale. What turned it around for me was getting deeper into the game. Higher level contracts would bring different variations of beasts and monsters. It also brought more difficult battles. Leveling up was also interesting. Figuring out how to build Geralt to your playstyle also added depth to the gameplay loop. Now let's talk about the DLCs. This is what really pushed me to make another video. Let's start with Heart of Stone. This DLC is centered around Gunther O'Dim and Olgrid von Emmerich. This DLC in particular is masterful. One reason is that the events of this DLC happens on a relatively small part of the map. One thing I don't like about most open world games is that most feel empty. The Witcher 3 as a whole didn't feel like that. Making the map more compact meant that the contents of the DLC were focused at a smaller location and it was easier to explore, and it never felt like you were wasting your time as you found new types of enemies to fight. The crown jewel of this DLC is the story and main missions. As I said, the story is centered around two characters, Gunther O'Dim, a mysterious figure that grants wishes but also has a sinister feel to his overall character, and Olgrid von Emmerich, who at the start of the DLC comes off as someone who is cold and not caring, but the deeper you dig into the story, the more you unravel von Emmerich's character. The three main missions you get are the three impossible wishes that Olgrid wants, and this to me is another highlight of the DLC. One request takes you on a high-stakes heist with a very interesting conclusion, another is showing a spirit the time of his life, which ends up seeing Geralt doing things he normally wouldn't, which is really funny. And the last and probably the most heartbreaking request, retrieving a rose from Olgrid's wife. Now, I don't want to spoil any of the quests, but they're all an adventure worth going through. The climax of this DLC is on another level, and its conclusion is satisfying, which makes going through the DLC worth it. It also brings in new side quests, contracts, and monsters, which is an extra win in my book. The last DLC is Blood and Wine. Throughout my playthrough of The Witcher 3, I always wonder why I didn't see a lot of vampires. I didn't know they were all in Toussaint. Well, at least that's what it felt like. I already mentioned its location, so let's focus on the other parts. In particular, the story. Geralt and his contracts always seem to bring him in interesting situations. Once you arrive in Toussaint, you find out that a vampire is terrorizing its streets. Towards the end, you uncover more secrets and everything isn't as it seems. I'll say it again, CDPR are masters at storytelling, and this DLC is proof of that. I genuinely love playing through it so much that by the end, after spending 124 hours into the game, I still wanted more. This DLC brought a whole new map, new creatures, new and interesting characters, more weapons, and new mechanics like the Hansa base. Another highlight for this DLC is how they incorporate the question marks found all across the map with side quests. While most of the time in the base game, the question marks were just points of interest, in this DLC, the question marks were part of the quests, which meant checking them all out felt more worthwhile. The side quests as well were really done well. Plus the added mechanics of leveling up with the mutations and the Grandmaster gear were all a treat to see and play through. After finishing the DLC, there's this moment where Geralt breaks the fourth wall and looks directly into the camera and smiles. That hit me, and it was like a friend saying goodbye and thank you for going through his story together. That will be one of the most iconic moments for me in gaming. The other one is during the end of RDR2. If you play RDR2, you know what I mean. I said in the beginning of the video, I understand why people regard this game as one of the best, and I see that now. All of the 124 hours I spent on this game was worth it. Every side quest, every treasure hunt, and every story felt like a love letter dedicated to the player. I will always have this game in my memory as one of the most magical, most beautiful game I have ever played. From its locations to its story, every piece of this game is amazing. I hope when you try it too, you'll see for yourself, and if you have played through it, I know you know what I mean. That's gonna be it for today, you guys. If I sound really weird, it's because I have a cold. Don't worry, it's not COVID. I'm okay. But yeah, I just want to greet everyone happy holidays and safe holidays, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out and much love.